Every night at exactly 2:13 a.m., I heard the same sound. The soft creak of our bedroom door, and the quiet footsteps of my wife walking down the hallway. At first I told myself it was nothing. Old houses make noises, old men imagine things. But then I noticed where she was going. Not to the kitchen, not to the bathroom. She was going into my mother's room. When I asked her about it, she just smiled and said, "Peter, you're imagining things. Go back to sleep." But I knew what I had seen. So at the age of 70 years old, I did something I never thought I would do to the woman I had loved for more than 30 years. I installed a hidden camera in my own mother's room. And the next morning, when I watched the footage, my hands started shaking. Because what I saw that night completely changed the way I looked at my wife, my mother, and myself. My name is Peter. I am 70 years old, and this is the story of the night I discovered a truth that broke my heart and healed it at the same time. I have lived a long life. 70 years is enough time to see the world change, to watch people come and go, and to learn that life rarely turns out the way we plan. For most of my life, I believed I had been lucky. I had a small but comfortable home, a loving wife named Laura, and the woman who raised me, my mother, Margaret, who had recently turned 92 years old. My father passed away when I was very young, and my mother spent her entire life sacrificing for me. She worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs at a time, just to make sure I had food, education, and a roof over my head. When she grew older and too weak to live alone, bringing her into my home felt like the least I could do to repay her. Laura agreed immediately. "Of course she can live with us," she told me with a warm smile. "She's family, Peter." At the time, I felt proud of my wife. I believed I had chosen the right partner in life. For the first few months, everything seemed peaceful. But slowly, small things began to feel strange. My mother had started forgetting things. Sometimes she called me by my father's name. Sometimes she forgot what year it was. The doctor told us it was normal for someone her age. Still, there was something else happening inside our house that I didn't understand. Something that only happened at night. One evening, I woke up thirsty. I reached over to the other side of the bed, but Laura wasn't there. I assumed she had gone to the kitchen. A few minutes later, she returned quietly and slipped back into bed. "Where were you?" I asked, half asleep. "Bathroom," she replied quickly. It sounded normal, so I didn't think much of it. But the next night, the same thing happened. And the night after that. Soon I began waking up around the same time every night. My body seemed to expect it. And every time, Laura was gone. One night, curiosity got the better of me. Instead of calling out, I pretended to sleep. Through half-closed eyes, I watched Laura slowly stand up, open the bedroom door as quietly as possible, and step into the hallway. Then she walked toward my mother's room. My heart started beating faster. Why would she go there at this hour? Maybe she was checking on her. But why not tell me? I stayed awake until she came back nearly 40 minutes later. When she lay down beside me, she acted as if nothing had happened. The next morning, I asked her casually, "Laura, do you check on my mother at night?" She froze for just a moment. Then she laughed softly. "Oh, Peter, you must have dreamed that." Her answer didn't sit right with me. I knew what I had seen. And for the first time in 35 years of marriage, a seed of doubt entered my heart. I hated that feeling. Laura had always been a good wife. Kind, patient, supportive. But something inside me kept whispering, "Find the truth." Days passed, but the strange routine continued. Every night around 2 in the morning. Every night the same quiet footsteps. Every night my wife entering my mother's room. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but my mind refused to rest. Questions filled my head. Was my mother sick and hiding it from me? Was Laura taking something from her? Or was something even worse happening inside that room? At 70 years old, I never thought I would feel like a suspicious detective inside my own house. But eventually, curiosity defeated my pride. One afternoon, while Laura went grocery shopping, I went into my mother's room. The room smelled faintly of lavender, just like it always had. My mother was sleeping in her chair by the window. On the bookshelf across from her bed, I placed a small hidden camera. It was barely noticeable between the books. My hands trembled slightly as I set it up. I felt guilty. Spying on your own family is not something a man should do. But I told myself I had no choice. That night, I went to bed pretending everything was normal. But my heart was beating faster than usual. Around 2:11 a.m., Laura slowly got out of bed again. Just like every other night. She walked down the hallway and entered my mother's room. I stayed in bed staring at the ceiling. Every minute felt like an hour. I barely slept at all. When morning finally arrived, I hurried to the camera. My hands were shaking as I inserted the memory card into my laptop. For a moment, I hesitated. Part of me was afraid of what I might see. But I pressed play, and the video began. The footage showed the dark room, lit only by a small night lamp. A few seconds later, the door opened slowly. Laura stepped inside. But what she did next completely stunned me. Instead of doing something suspicious, she walked quietly to my mother's bed and gently knelt beside her. She softly held my mother's hand. "Mom, it's Laura," she whispered. "I brought your medicine." My mother slowly opened her eyes, looking confused and frightened. Where am I?" she asked weakly. Laura smiled gently. "You're safe, you're at home." Then she carefully helped my mother sit up and drink some water. My mother's hands were trembling. Laura rubbed her back patiently like a nurse caring for a patient. Then my mother asked something that shattered my heart. "Where is Peter?" Laura glanced toward the door. "He's sleeping," she said softly. "He needs his rest." My eyes filled with tears as I watched. Because suddenly everything made sense. My mother wasn't just waking up at night. She was waking up scared and confused. And Laura had been taking care of her every single night, without waking me. For almost an hour in the video, Laura stayed beside her. She talked gently, calmed her down, and held her hand until she fell asleep again. At one point my mother asked, "Who are you?" Laura smiled warmly and replied, "Tonight I'm your daughter." I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. All those nights, all those doubts, all those suspicions. And the truth was the exact opposite of what I had feared. That evening, I sat quietly in the living room, waiting for Laura to return from work. When she entered the house, she immediately noticed my expression. "You watched the camera, didn't you?" she asked softly. I nodded. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Laura sat beside me. "Peter, your mother wakes up confused almost every night," she explained. "She gets scared. Sometimes she doesn't even remember where she is." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. Laura gave a small sad smile. "Because you're 70 years old, Peter. You deserve to sleep peacefully." Her words hit me harder than anything else. For months, I had suspected her, while she had been quietly sacrificing her sleep to care for my mother. I felt ashamed. That night, I told her, "From now on, we'll take care of her together." And that's exactly what we did. Some nights my mother recognized me. Some nights she didn't. But Laura was always patient, always gentle, always kind. One night my mother looked at Laura and said something I will never forget. You're the daughter I never had." Laura squeezed her hand and whispered, "I'm honored." 3 months later, my mother passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was 92 years old. The night before she died, she held my hand and said, "Peter, you chose the right woman." I looked at Laura and realized how true those words were. Even now, sometimes I think about that hidden camera. Not because of what it revealed, but because of what it taught me. At 70 years old, I learned one of the most important lessons of my life. Sometimes the people we doubt the most are the ones loving us the most. And the greatest acts of kindness often happen quietly, when no one is watching. Moral of the story: never judge someone's love too quickly. Real love is not always loud or visible. Sometimes it shows itself in the quiet sacrifices people make for those they care about. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because every story here leaves behind a lesson.